everybody, this is Movieverse. My name is Brian.
And I'm Greg.
Today is October 16th, 2014, and this is our first podcast. So our first topic today is coming out of Marvel camp. There's a report that Robert Downey Jr. is joining Captain America 3 to kick off the Civil War storyline.
Why is that such a big deal, Brian?
Well, it's one of the most popular Marvel sort of storylines. If you don't know anything about it, I think it ran in 2006 or 2007. The story behind it is there is a supervillain that basically explodes during a raid, and he blows up half a city block, including a kid's elementary school. And this sparks outrage in the government and public. So a Superhero Registration Act is formed, and our superheroes are split onto two sides. On one side is Tony Stark and Iron Man, and on the other side is Captain America. Now, Iron Man actually sides with the government on this and thinks that Superhero Registration Act should happen, and basically they have to reveal their identity to the government. And when that happens, their identity is going to be revealed to the whole world. And so the opposite side, led by Captain America, doesn't think that is constitutional, and it also breaks their privacy as superheroes. So basically it puts those two characters against each other, and the whole Marvel cinematic, or whole Marvel universe with superheroes is split down the middle. So there's people on Captain America's side, there's people on Iron Man's side, and it's just a universe-altering storyline that happens. So basically, this news is hugely important to the Marvel Cinematic Universe because this is something that we haven't really seen before. Like, we have the Avengers movies that, were great. It was the first time that we got to see, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and Hulk all together on one screen, and it was like history. It was awesome to see that. But I feel like they're being more aggressive with these next couple movies with Age of Ultron, and if Civil War proves to be true, which it came from a pretty reliable source in Variety magazine. So it will change the whole cinematic universe, and also kind of have to wonder what it's going to do with the whole Thanos story arc in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. Greg, you have anything to add to that so far?
I feel like the big thing, you saw the initial rumblings about this in that kind of final scene in the first Avengers, where kind of everybody was talking about how they felt about superheroes, and that I feel like it's probably the events of Avengers 2 will lead to a kind of a similar outcome where there's there's more pressure put on kind of what's left of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever the new S.H.I.E.L.D. becomes. And so, which leads into what's going to happen in Captain America 3, where you're finally going to get that tipping point and the fallout from that tipping point.
Yeah, so one thing that's good about these movies is, like when you start a new movie, like let's say, end of Avengers, and then we have Captain America 3, you see that people are still dealing with what happened, especially in Iron Man 3, because he had, the whole post-traumatic stress disorder and all that stuff. And so like these Marvel movies, you're seeing everything that happens like afterwards. You see how they're dealing with, like, Steve Rogers is back with S.H.I.E.L.D. and taking orders, and he's really like
being a soldier again.
Yeah, and he's really kind of making progress in that respect too, because you notice like how more advanced he was in his fighting tactics and things like that. So yeah, I agree with the fact that, like, at the end of Avengers, which I didn't think about until you said it, was that there were people that were being interviewed on the news that were for the Avengers and against the Avengers, and there was even politicians calling for them to take responsibility for the damages. And so now, from what we know of Age of Ultron, it seems like it's going to be even more destruction going on. Uh, and so I think that maybe if the rumors are true about Tony Stark having a a part in the formation of Ultron, spoiler, then he might feel especially responsible for that, and maybe feel more like he needs to take the side of the government and say, "Hey, I need to be regulated. Like I haven't been regulated so far, and look what I've done." And to where Captain America at the end of Captain America 2, you could see that he started to not trust the government because of the Hydra's takeover of Shield and how he disbanded that, and how all that happened. And I want to point out one thing to you, Greg, because I don't know if I've mentioned to this to you yet. But there were a few rumors a month or so ago that said that Marvel was making a deal with Sony to maybe possibly get some kind of partial rights or full rights to Spider-Man. And a lot of people didn't understand why they would do that. Like, why would they do that now?
And actually, I saw that same thing too. There's a couple of things. Is one, in the comics, Spider-Man is a big part of the Avengers, and then two, the primary storyline in Civil War is that it's Peter Parker and Spider-Man trying to decide which side of this registration law to side with. Because,
Yep.
I mean, he's shown to be a very good friend of Tony Stark, and he does kind of, at least it seems like he thinks that's the right thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, he wants to keep his secret to protect, what's left of his family and his friends.
Yeah, and also to add to that, from what I remember, I think Spider-Man had just gotten a new suit right before Civil War, and it was from Tony Stark. Like, he gave him a suit. And so basically Spider-Man ends up, he first is on Tony Stark's side, and he gets up in front of this press box and in front of all these cameras, and basically takes his mask off and tells the world that, hey, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And that was a real turning point in that storyline. And then he has a change of heart, and then he joins Captain America. So, like, the cover of Civil War is Iron Man and Captain America, like, playing tug of war with Spider-Man, and it's a very powerful cover. So I'm really interested to see what they do if this Civil War storyline report is true. And another reason why this is exciting is because Robert Downey Jr.'s contract was only for Avengers 2 and Avengers 3. So if he's signed on to do a Captain America movie, who knows what else he's going to be signed on for. I know a couple.
And actually, I believe in at least the story I read, that basically kind of Marvel really just wanted him as more of a cameo character or like a pass-through character. Kind of, he had a few scenes, but wasn't really involved. But Robert Downey Jr. himself was the one that kind of championed a larger role for himself.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that there was a day where Robert Downey Jr. was on a talk show in the middle of the day, and he was getting asked, like, are you going to do any more Iron Man movies? And he was kind of like jumping around the question, and he said, he's like, we'll ride that wave, into shore, and
He said if Mel Gibson was going to direct it.
Yeah, that was. I think Robert Downey Jr. was like trolling most of like the world, trying to like get some kind of reaction out of him. But basically, on this talk show, he basically said, yes, there's going to be an Iron Man 4. But then later that night, on the next talk show that he was on, he was like, no, there's no talks for Iron Man 4. There's no script, all that stuff. But he said that there are more things going on at Marvel that he was going to be a part of. So I'm hoping that Civil War is just the beginning of that, because, I mean, I can't see anybody else playing that role of Tony Stark. Like, Robert Downey Jr., I feel like, is synonymous with Tony Stark, because that's the only person I think of when I think Tony Stark.
I think you could get away with a different person as Iron Man, But the fact to have another person as Tony Stark
Yeah.
is a whole different ballgame.
Well, and it'd be easy to keep him on as Iron Man too, because even if like he was just in the suit the whole movie, you would just have to have like maybe a week's worth of shooting of like just his face, and it could just be him in the suit, just and he could still be in a whole movie, and it'd be really easy, and he'd probably make a bag of cash every time he did it.
And also another interesting thing. I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers because I have read the main Civil War storyline, so kind of maybe scrub ahead a little bit if you don't want to hear what happens in it. But at the very end of the story, basically, Captain America eventually gives up and allows himself to be arrested because he will not sign over his identity.
Yeah, because they were like getting into a big fight, and then there was a bunch of damage, and he was seeing like people around him, like civilians, getting hurt
because of what he was doing.
Yeah, because he was fighting
so he
against.
Surrendered. Yep. He didn't sign the law, but he let himself get arrested.
Yep.
And so both Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans, who are Thor and Captain America respectively, have both complained about all the work they have to do to become these characters. So I almost wonder if between Marvel in the comics itself replacing Thor with a different character and using the story and now the Civil War, if this is kind of a way to try and kind of replace those characters or those actors with more Marvel friendly actors.
Yeah, and another thing is, which I don't think they're going to do this, but like in Captain America 2, we had that little like snapshot of the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky, when he like caught the shield and like he had it in like a signature pose that was from the comic books. So that was kind of like a little tip that I had to that. Or it could have been like maybe, hey, when Chris Evans' contract is up, we'll have Sebastian Stan take over and be Iron Man as Bucky / the Winter Soldier / the new Captain America. I don't know if they'll do that or if they might just recast the character. That remains to be seen, because Marvel, they have a plan that they're very secretive about, and they don't let anybody in on that stuff except for maybe Robert Downey Jr. because he's Robert Downey Jr. But
and Marvel has put in different multiple people to carry the shield and multiple people to carry Mjolnir, so it wouldn't be out of the question to them replace them with different characters. Yet they're still Thor and Captain America.
Yeah. The final thing I wanted to say on this is with this Civil War storyline, if it is true, then that kind of, like I stated earlier, it kind of changes up things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as much as we know of. Because so far it just seems like it's following that like Infinity Gauntlet storyline where it's introducing Infinity Stones, and everybody was assuming that Thanos was going to be in Avengers 3. But with Civil War, that could push back Thanos. Or, maybe it doesn't push him back in Marvel's eyes, but, because maybe they had him coming out in Avengers 4 and not Avengers 3. Who knows? But, yeah, so, I mean, all that stuff is yet to be seen. But every time Marvel comes out with some news, it's big, and it takes over a day. On most movie sites, just talking about everything that means, which leads me to my next topic, because it seems like in response to that report coming out of Marvel Civil War movie, then DC just like laid everything out for us. They're just like, what, like Marvel's owning us right now. We just need to give the fans something to be excited for. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I know more about Marvel than I do DC, but, everybody knows Superman, everybody knows Batman, and I'm familiar with The Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, all those people because of the, like, old Justice League TV shows, like on Cartoon Network and all that stuff.
The biggest thing is that the DC news shows the fans and the public that they do have a plan for what's going on.
Yeah.
Marvel has said from kind of like day 2, once Iron Man 1 was a success, that they have this grand master plan, but yet we've heard DC going, oh, we want to do a Justice League movie, or they kind of tried half-assed with Green Lantern, the first Green Lantern.
Awful.
Yeah. So it's kind of that feel like that kind of probably pushed them back a little bit, made them a little leery.
Yeah.
So but I mean, it's nice to see that they are taking their property seriously, and
Yeah, and they're also challenging Marvel at the same time because they are DC is showing all of the movies that they plan on doing and through 2020 with titles and the people that star in them or direct it. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and pull up that slate of movies so I can share that with you guys.
well, I think the difference though, like with kind of the way Marvel and DC are going about it, is that Marvel is starting with the standalone movies and then going to Avengers, whereas
Yeah.
the reason why DC, the actors for them is because they're signing up to do the Justice League movie, then getting their solo movies.
Yeah, which is a smart way to do it because I heard this on one of the TV shows or on one of the movie shows that I watch is, you can't start at a level 1 and fight a level 20, because Marvel is so high up there right now with Avengers already being out, reportedly having Robert Downey Jr. sign on to Captain America 3 for Civil War. I mean, those are the big guns right there. So if you're going to compete with that, you can't start off with like all these solo movies and trying to build up to something because Marvel already has that out. So you need to start with your big guns, and then once you have those big movies and you have those characters, then you can start to, separate them into their solo films in between other big movies that have those main characters cross over with. So from this announcement that DC made, it's all going to start with Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, directed by Zack Snyder in 2016. The second movie that is in 2016 for DC is a Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer. Now, I am not too familiar with Suicide Squad. I do know that it has Deadshot in it and also Harley Quinn. But the other characters I'm not familiar with at all. I don't even know their names, to be honest with you.
Deathstroke is also one that's usually...
Is it?
He's usually in there. At least from what I remember, and I could be wrong. I'm like you. I'm not a big DC fan.
Yeah.
And I love Batman, but that's kind of really the tip and all of the iceberg when it comes to DC for me.
Yeah.
I know who Green Lantern is. I know who Flash. I know Wonder Woman. But I was, for the most part, Marvel had the better cartoons, so I watched those.
All right. So yeah, like I said, Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer in 2016. Then Gal Gadot, however you pronounce that. I think it's Gal Gadot actually. Her Wonder Woman solo film is in 2017. Then following that in 2017 is Justice League Part 1. So the only movies that you're getting before that Justice League movie is Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, which is all villains. It's none of the main superhero characters.
Suicide Squad has nothing to do with what happens in Justice League.
Yeah, I think it might be in the same universe, but I don't think... I can't see it. Maybe it leads up to it, but I don't see how it would. Yeah, I just don't see it.
Because, those villains are all handled by one hero to begin with.
Yeah.
So I really doubt they're on the Suicide Squad because they have... I don't believe it's because they've usually been somehow captured by either one of the other superheroes or by the government. And so kind of this is supposed to be a kind of suicide missions where they're kind of expected to die.
Yeah. And with Justice League Part 1 coming out in 2017, before some of these other movies I'm about to tell you, kind of makes you wonder what Justice League characters are going to be in that movie, because I do know that in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, we're supposed to see Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I know Cyborg's character, Victory Stone, I believe is his alter ego. He's supposed to be in it. I don't know if he's going to be Victory Stone or if he's going to turn into Cyborg during that movie. I'm not really sure. And then I thought
there were rumors for Aquaman.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think Aquaman might make a appearance in that as well, but I'm not sure on what,
in what kind of role.
Yeah, it might just be like a small cameo or something. But so then after Justice League Part 1, then we have The Flash coming out starring Ezra Miller in 2018. Now, we already have a Flash TV show, and I think the guy who plays Barry Allen is likable. I think that if he was given a chance at a blockbuster movie like this, I think it'd be very good. I'm not too impressed by what I'm seeing from Flash as far as the visuals. There are some visuals that are really good, and I think the show's enjoyable. I just think that, well, I mean, it's his first season, so the visuals aren't going to.
It's also TV, so budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like
quasi-network TV.
Yeah. Well, Agents of Shield. I mean, that show has really good effects in the second season.
That has Disney money behind it, though.
Yeah, this is true. Plus, it's in its second season. The first season's effects weren't that great either. Yeah. But so yeah, we have a separate Flash from the TV Flash coming out in 2018. Aquaman starring Jason Momoa in 2018 as well. Now, Jason Momoa, I know who he is. I do not watch Game of Thrones because I don't have HBO, so I don't watch Game of Thrones. But I've seen this guy, and he is a monster. And I am so excited to see him as Aquaman. Everybody gives Aquaman, a bad rep, like, oh, he just talks to fish. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe the old style Aquaman, but I mean, they rebooted his comics here with the New 52 reboot, and I've heard that they are badass. And I can tell you this much: I've played Injustice, which is basically Mortal Kombat, except for with DC characters, and my favorite character on that game is Aquaman. He's awesome. So I'm really excited to see that because Jason Momoa is like this huge built dude, and it'll be awesome to see him next to Superman, like being as big or bigger than Superman. Following that is Shazam in 2019. Now, Shazam hasn't been announced, but Black Adam is being portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I love. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I think he is awesome. I've seen him in the Fast and Furious movies that he's been in, Scorpion King, those kind of movies. He's just a really likable actor, and obviously he's built for the role. That dude just works out every day, all day.
The big thing I remember when that was announced was that it seemed like they finally are giving credence to making sure your hero has a humanizable villain.
Yeah.
So many of, especially the Marvel movies,
yeah,
kind of the villain is there just to be beaten.
Yeah, I do notice that, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, like I love Lee Pace. I think he did an awesome job as the Kree guy.
Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah, Ronan the Accuser. And like he was really intimidating as Ronan the Accuser, but then like they made him really easy to beat. I mean, I understand like they were going for like a comedy, like at the, like it was kind of supposed to be comical. So like when Chris Pratt's sitting there dancing and stuff, it was hilarious. I thought it was awesome, but at the same time, yeah, they don't like it doesn't ever seem like our characters are really in danger. So like I really hope that with Age of Ultron, that they really kind of set that tone, which I think they have. From what I've heard and read about the Comic-Con footage for Age of Ultron, I mean, it sounds amazing. So hopefully with Ultron, they kind of change that.
Not to get off on too much of a tangent, but
yeah.
Do you think Josh Whedon will actually kill somebody in Avengers 2? Or kill off one of the characters? For real this time?
Man, for a while there, I thought he would. And I thought it was going to be Hawkeye, honestly, because he didn't have that much of a story arc in Avengers 1. I mean, Hawkeye just doesn't seem that big of a character in the movie cinematic universe right now. But from what I've, from the rumors that I've heard and, articles that I've read, it seems like Hawkeye is going to have a role in Captain America 3. So,
he was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. I mean, that's how he was introduced.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, I don't know. If they do, it would probably be a smaller character, which is. I mean, it would get the message across. But at the same time, if you really want to like create a big statement, you take one of those big characters and you do something with them. You know what I mean? Like if it's somebody, that's why I'm thinking Jeremy Renner, because you don't want to get rid of Tony Stark in Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. I mean, there's no way. Chris Evans, you don't want to get rid of him. I would. Yeah, I mean,
about having Civil War coming up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way they're getting rid of them. Obviously, I would want to keep Chris Evans around with Thor as long as I can, because I feel like he's doing a fantastic job with it. So, I
But
mean,
Evans and Hemsworth have been the two biggest complainers.
yeah, I mean they
And
have, but
rightfully so because of the amount of work they have to go through. But
yeah, and keeping their bodies in shape. I mean that's grueling. But yeah, so I hope that Marvel changes that with Ultron. I hope I hope he is like the baddest villain they have seen so far. Um, well, let's get back on topic with this DC movies.
I derailed you on that one.
It's all good. So Justice League Part 2, directed by Zack Snyder, comes out in 2019. Cyborg, starring Ray Fisher, who is Cyborg Victory Stone, comes out in 2020. And then Green Lantern comes out in 2020. And they have not announced who will be playing Green Lantern. But I do believe that it is not Ryan Reynolds. I'm pretty sure they made that known because otherwise they would have announced it was Ryan Reynolds. I think the reason why they're taking so much time and putting Green Lantern at the end of this movie slate that they've given us is because of how awful that Green Lantern movie was. Now, in my opinion, Ryan Reynolds was the best thing about that movie. I think that he is a great actor for that role. However, I do not think that the story for that movie was where it needed to be. I think the story was really weak. My favorite scene from that movie was when he was training. I thought that was a very entertaining scene, but everything else, like the giant cloud about to eat the earth and all that, was awful. And the big-headed dude, I don't even know his name. But so that's
there is
DC's
one
announcement.
glaring omission from that list that I noticed that has had a bunch of recent popularity.
What's that?
And that would be Green Arrow.
Yeah, see, Green Arrow has that TV show on the CW, which is amazing. I watch that show every week.
I love that show as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, the main reason why Marvel's keeping Hawkeye around is it's their bow and arrow guy. So
I wonder.
It seems odd that you have this popular show with one of your characters, yet you're not even going to not even saying you bring that guy in as Green Arrow in the movie, but that character doesn't even make it into their cinematic universe.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because Green Arrow is so popular, like the TV show. I wonder if maybe, they might bring him in a smaller role like Hawkeye was first announced. You know what I mean? Because when I saw what was it, Thor, and they had Hawkeye in it, I didn't hear any announcement that Jeremy Renner was going to be playing Hawkeye in Thor. Now, granted, I wasn't paying as much attention to these movies when Thor came out, so maybe that was just something that I missed. But also, now that you mentioned things about being omitted from this list, they did not mention a Superman or Batman solo film in this list of movies. However, they did say that there were Batman and Superman solo movies that were going to be coming in this time frame. They just haven't announced the dates yet, and I feel like that is to kind of, not give away all the secrets. You know what I mean? They're probably gonna leave those for to make some big announcements because they're banking on this Batman vs Superman. If this thing doesn't go over well for them, then they are screwed, big time.
Yeah,
especially after announcing all these movies.
Yeah,
and setting them in stone for sure.
Yeah. Both the Justice League movies that they announced, Batman and Superman have always been such a huge part of the Justice League.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like they are Batman or Superman movies.
Yeah, and to get into these castings real quick, I mean, a lot of people did not like the casting of Ben Affleck as Batman. However, I like the casting. I'm just really curious to see if they're going to, because they're portraying a Batman that's in his 40s, how he's going to be able to keep up with the Justice League. Because me personally, I know I saw that Comic-Con footage of Batman in that mechanical suit from Dark Knight Returns, but I don't want to see Batman running around that mechanical suit the whole time. You know what I mean? I would like to see him, in his normal bat suit, and going around with these superheroes, because there's there's this one line from the new 52 reboot animated movie called Justice League War, where Batman meets up with Green Lantern, and Green Lantern's trying to figure out, are you a vampire? Are you this? Are you that? And he's asking him if he can fly, and he's like, oh, in an airplane. And Green Lantern was just like, oh, you're not just some normal dude in a bat suit, are you? And Batman kind of like turns around and smirks at him. And I thought that was a really awesome dynamic to have in the cinematic universe. It's just like, Batman is just this guy that's in a bat suit who has like this specific training.
That does kind of lead to why I also preferred Marvel over DC, is that so many of the DC characters are so
super powerful.
Human,
yeah, like they have.
Whereas Batman is a human person.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. Like I said, that's why I like Batman as far as where the DC characters. So that's why I am a little more skeptical of what DC is going to do, because all their characters have one weakness, and it's all a matter of point out that one weakness.
Yeah.
And granted, that one weakness for Batman is that he's human.
Yeah. I will say this though, about DC. I am kind of, I wouldn't say worried, just like unsure, because we've only seen Man of Steel, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but then they also had Green Lantern, so it's like hit or miss. So it's like 50% of their movies gonna be awesome, and then 50% of their movies gonna be awful.
Yeah, because Chris Nolan Batman movies.
Oh, I know.
Exist, so
yeah, I know. Not even this universe, but that trilogy was amazing. But yeah. So like, I'm really excited to see these characters brought to the big screen, because even like Shazam. I mean, that's an awesome character to me. Aquaman. I can't wait to see what they do with him. Because they're probably gonna get him to be like grittier and kind of probably butt heads, I would assume, with some of these like Superman, because they're basically like, out of water. Aquaman is Superman. Basically,
actually,
he just can't fly.
Just brought up the word gritty. Is I remember seeing another article, kind of basically DC's kind of head of movies, that Kevin Feige of DC.
Yeah.
I forget his name, but he talked about making them, or that their movies were going to be much like grittier and darker in tone than
more serious
the Marvel movies. So
yep.
I kind of wonder how that, like, I don't know what you really think about that, because
yeah,
one of the things going for Marvel is the lightheartedness of it.
Yeah, one of the best things about the Iron Man movies and Tony Stark is Robert Downey Jr. and his the only word I can use for it is sassiness. Like, he is like sassy throughout all of his movies, and it's such a joy to watch him, and that's why I love Robert Downey Jr. as in that role so much. And yeah, Marvel has a great balance of comic relief and serious tones in their movies.
Yeah, DC always seen is the serious character tones. We haven't seen
much
lightheartedness.
They were a little silly in Green Lantern, but that didn't work out for him. But in Man of Steel, it was much more serious, and I enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought the tone worked very well for what they were trying to do with that movie. So I think that if they continue to do that,
do you think all of those characters can survive in an environment like that? Or do they hold up the same way?
I think that the only character that would need to have some comic relief with it would be the Flash and Barry Allen, because that character is kind of like the jokester of the group. He's always making little jokes here and there. So I think that as long as they have some comedy in there with him, I think it could work, because that's what brings you into that character of Flash, is the lightheartedness of that character. Just to wrap this up quickly, so basically Marvel and DC both have their master plans, as we now know. We've heard rumors of what Marvel's trying to do with Doctor Strange. We know that they're coming out with Ant-Man next year after Age of Ultron. And then we get this whole lineup of movies from DC. So obviously both of these companies are trying to bank on this superhero movie genre that has become so popular here in the mainstream over the past few years since Iron Man, the original Iron Man movie.
Actually, I would go back to even the X-Men movies. Granted, they're not
Yeah, that's true.
proper like Marvel Studios
That's
movies.
true. They were popular, but I don't feel like it actually took a boom until Iron Man. I think Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, like that movie set off all these shared universes because Marvel's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like at the end of Iron Man, Nick Fury cameoed, played by Samuel Jackson, and said, hey, you're part of a bigger world than you even know, and that set the stage for this huge Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now everyone is trying to copy them. I mean, I'm not saying like copy is like a copycat, but like, DC they're like, okay, well we need to start capitalizing on our assets that we have over here, and then let's see what else. X-Men they have their own movies that they do. Spider-Man was which kind of failed with this Spider-Man 2 trying to create this this whole universe based off of Spider-Man.
Whole cinematic universe thing planned.
Yeah,
out
like
too.
Sinister Six, which got pushed back. So we'll see what happens with the Spider-Man universe. Whether or not Spider-Man gets taken by Marvel for the Civil War storyline to see if like they have partial rights for him or what happens there. But yeah, so we have Sony with their shared universe or cinematic universe with the Spider-Man universe. We have the X-Men. We have DC. What's another one? Oh, one that I heard of, which I think is kind of absurd, is what is it? I forget what studio it is, but they're doing like they just came out with Dracula Untold, and that's supposed to be like the beginning of this studio's cinematic universe, and there's supposed to be like all those like monsters like Dracula, the Mummy, Werewolf, Frankenstein, like all those characters are supposed to like come together in this like cinematic universe that this studio I forget the name of it, but this studio is trying to come up with, and I think it's kind of absurd, and that I would say that's the one that's like copying the most. They're just trying to bank on this like shared universe that these other.
How about Star Wars?
Well, Star Wars is Disney owned. I have no problem.
But
Star Wars.
Star Wars, they're doing their kind of quote trilogy movies
Yeah,
every other
yeah.
year, with then a standalone movie that takes place in that in that same universe.
Yeah, what
You could argue they were the original.
yeah,
shared
that's why
universe
I
because
don't have an issue with Star Wars doing any of that because Star Wars came out long before any of these other ones were even thought about. So with Star
except
Wars,
now it's all means nothing because Disney scrapped all of it.
what
Disney scrapped all of the extended universe stuff.
did they?
Yeah, it's only the
They're not doing any solo movies.
well, they're doing the solo movies, but I'm talking about the previous the all the old books and cartoons and like shows and that.
Oh yeah.
That's all non-canon anymore.
Oh well, like the original,
It's like
the
the
first
6 movies,
first 6 movies.
the Clone Wars animated show,
Yeah.
and animated movie that went along with it
Oh, that's
are the only canon now in Star Wars.
yeah. One more thing that I want to bring up in this podcast is the shared universe with the Marvel movies and the Marvel TV shows. Now, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a rough first season. I think that before the Captain America 2 storyline took place, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really had a hard time finding its footing in TV because they were trying to wait for Captain America 2 to come out and show the aftermath of that event. But after that movie, Captain America 2, I felt like Marvel's S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately got better with the intricateness of their characters. Spoiler alert: Agent Ward is Hydra, and how they're dealing with that in the second season now. So I love how how the TV show is connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think that as the show goes on, they'll get better with involving it in the cinematic universe. But DC, on the other hand, announced that their TV shows are in a completely different universe than their movies, which is now why we have a Flash movie coming out, because Flash on TV and Flash in the movies are completely separate. They're not even part of the same universe. There's nothing similar about it. And the same thing with that Arrow show. That's not part of the DC cinematic universe.
But the Flash show and Arrow are both connected
Yeah,
together.
And Stephen Amell, even said that they're basically doing their own small little Justice League thing on TV. And what was that guy's name who played in Superman Returns? Brandon Routh? Is that his name? Brandon Routh?
I couldn't.
Brendan Routh? I think it's something Routh. I think it's Brandon Routh. Plays the Atom in Arrow. I don't think they've made that like. I don't think it's gotten to that episode yet, but like they have introduced his alter ego character in Arrow, and I haven't watched this week's episode yet because I've been so busy. But yeah, so I can't wait to see where they go with these TV shows on DC's side. I'm just
and also I wanted to say, I believe, with CBS, even though CBS picked up Wonder Woman.
Oh, was it CBS?
Yeah.
Okay.
CBS did it. I want to say I thought they may not necessarily have the cameos from Arrow and Flash, but believe there will be like shared events that share all three worlds.
Crossover events. Yeah, I heard that same thing with is it TNT that is picking up a Teen Titans TV show that will be headed by Nightwing.
I had not heard that actually been picked up. I heard
Yeah.
that they're shopping that around.
No, I think it was like TNT or something like that. It was one of those channels. But yeah, I also heard that that the DC TV shows were going to be separate, but then they were going to have these like crossover events, which I think is huge. I think the only one that kind of like stays separate from that is Fox TV show Gotham. That one just seems like completely separate from like everything else that they're doing, because if it was the same, then Batman would already be in Gotham if they have Green Arrow and the Flash and all that stuff.
See, I almost feel, I don't know, really.
Gotham's getting off to a rough start too, in my opinion. I think it has a lot of potential, but I think they tried too hard in the first episode to have too many cameos. Like it just felt like they were just throwing names in there to be like, oh look, we have another character in here, so watch our show.
Well, it's because it's Batman without Batman, so
yeah,
they want to throw as many familiar names out there as they can.
Yeah, and they're trying too hard to have young Bruce Wayne be as Batman-y as possible. Like they have him like in I think like the second episode, like standing up on a ledge, like, and they're like, "What are you doing up there, Bruce?" And he's like, "I'm testing my fear." And it's like, dude, you're like 8 years old. Like you're not doing that. And then also like he's like burning his hand with a candle.
And I'm not a big fan of how they portray Alfred either.
Yeah, they made him to be like a jackass, in my opinion. Like just rule.
Michael Caine played him perfectly.
Oh, I know. You know what's funny though? Liam Neeson's.
He said he would.
Yeah, he said he was.
Contact him. He would gladly be Ra's al Ghul again.
Yeah, an Arrow. He said he'd gladly be Ra's al Ghul and Arrow, and yet they
didn't even ask him.
Yeah, they casted some other dude. I'm just like, man, like that's a missed opportunity. Do you know how many people would stand around and watch Arrow if they thought that Liam Neeson was going to make an appearance in one of those episodes? I mean, I'm already watching the show, but that would make me watch it even more, if that's possible. But yeah, so I think that's all we have for today. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel.
There will be more videos. So.
Yes, this is just the beginning. So this is podcast number 1. We plan on making some more content in the future with movie reviews, trailer reactions. So yeah, me and Greg will be around a lot more. We might add to our roster a little bit. We'll see how things.
Rotate some people in and out. See how well you guys like them and how well they work with us.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. Like I said, like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can follow us at facebook.com/Movieverse online. Also follow our Twitter at Movieverse1. So that'll do it for tonight, guys. Have a good night. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, everybody.